Recently, Jarvis Butts pled guilty in the unaliving case of Naziah Harris, as well as to criminal sexual conduct in 5 other cases. I want to discuss additional information in that plea agreement and what I believe may be some misinformation, as well as the unpopular opinion concerning it all. Hi, I'm Nikki Lynn, and welcome to Nikki Lynn Investigates, where I break down true crime cases, past and present, provide you with updates on cases that shook our communities to its core. Follow along as we delve into current events, breaking news, and criminal trials with facts, context, and clarity, all while applying legal principles. Are you ready to take a closer look?
This video may contain copyrighted material. The copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976 allows for fair uses for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. This video is intended for educational, entertainment, and commentary purposes. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute.
So whether you agree with plea agreements or not, I believe they're offered all the time, and they're offered for different reasons. My first was obviously they save taxpayers money. Second, I do believe that you sometimes don't want to expose your young victims. Third, I do believe, as I've always stated, that when you offer someone a plea agreement to try and elicit more information from them, and I said this in Jarvis' case in the very beginning, to try to get additional details from them. What did you do with the body? Give us details of the crime, and so forth. And that's exactly what happened here. But whether you agree that a plea agreement should be offered or not, because sometimes I agree, in the case of children, it's heinous, and I sometimes don't want to see a defendant given a better deal, but sometimes we're never going to get details from this person of what they did if we don't offer up something. And this is exactly what I believe was going on in the case of Jarvis Butts. It's what I was always stating, that if he gives us details of the crime, I could see them offering him a better deal if he tells us where Naziah's body is. So that brings me to one of my first, I believe, misinformation, guys. One of the first aspects I think is misinformation out here. So first I want to talk about the fact that a lot of people think that Jarvis just gave this information on the 12th, and I totally disagree. As I've stated, plea deals are ongoing negotiations from his last plea offer up into the one that he accepted. I always believed that it was an ongoing negotiation between him, his defense, and the prosecutor's team. So therefore, they was always trying to work out a deal. When did he give the information about the body? I'm not sure, but I can tell you that the plea deal that he just accepted was drawn up on Monday, February the 9th, not the 12th. The 12th was when they went to court and put it on record. So again, the plea deal was drawn up on Monday, February the 9th, which is when, again, the prosecution wrote it all up, presented it to his team. Again, on the 12th, it was just, they just went into court and put it on record. So we can assume that negotiation again was going on from when he rejected the first offer right on up until then. So Jarvis knew, and they had been negotiating, and they probably was more than aware about the body, or what he at least told them about the body prior to the 9th. And second, because I already mentioned it, which I will go back into, I'm just going to bring it out here now, because I'm going to go through every count and tell you guys what I think isn't being said as a part of this plea. But most importantly, I think the biggest misinformation that has been coming out about this plea deal is that this plea will be rejected if they don't find the body. And that's not what I'm reading in this plea, guys. I'm reading that it says, agree to provide a truthful statement regarding the body of Naziah Harris. Again, it does not explicitly state the body must be found. I don't know if there's some backdoor conversation between the defense and the prosecution that says if we don't find the body, we're rejecting this plea or you don't get this plea. But clearly in this plea deal, it does not state that they must find the body in order for him to receive this plea. It says he has to agree to provide a truthful statement regarding the body of Naziah Harris. That means they have to believe that the information Jarvis has given them is truthful. It does not mean that they have to locate the actual body. And I know people are going to disagree with me. But again, unless there is some backdoor agreement, some conversation behind the scenes, I'm not reading that to say that they must find the body in order for him to receive this plea. So I did jump ahead and give you that information concerning what I thought was the biggest bit of information out there that was misinformation. But I do want to let you all know that Jarvis has been advised of his rights and notice of acceptance for the 6 counts to which he pled guilty. Those advisement of rights and acceptance are all the same for each count. So I'm only going to go over them once, but I think it's important that we understand what Jarvis had to agree to. So in summation, it reads, you have been offered to plead guilty or no contest in this matter. Before accepting your plea, the court must be convinced that you understand the following. If your plea is accepted, you will not have a trial of any kind, and so you give up the rights you would have at the trial, including the right to be tried by a jury, the right to be presumed innocent or until proven guilty, to have a prosecutor prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you are guilty, to have the witnesses against you appear at the trial, to question the witnesses against you, to have the court order any witnesses you have for the defense to appear at the trial, to have remained silent during the trial, to not have that silence used against you, or to testify at the trial if you want to. If your plea is accepted and you commit misconduct before sentencing, the court will not be required to follow a sentencing agreement or evaluation. Misconduct includes, but is not limited to, failing to appear for sentencing, violating a bond condition, violating a sentencing or plea agreement, or failing to obey a different court order. And finally, if you are not a U.S. citizen, has your attorney informed you that your plea subjects you to immigration consequences, including deportation? Again, all these conditions apply to each count that he pled guilty to. And as you can see, Jarvis agreed and signed. So as I read what's in the plea agreement, I'll read the case number and pertinent information surrounding each case number, but I won't put that information on the screen because I believe it's sensitive information concerning the witnesses. But I think I'll give you what information I believe is necessary for you to understand what I'm trying to portray here. In case ending in 6101, Jarvis agreed to plead guilty to count 3, which is criminal sexual conduct in the second degree, which is a person under the age of 13, whereas the defendant is over the age of 17. The maximum penalty he could have received for that is 15 years and lifetime electronic monitoring. The people did agree to dismiss 2 counts of first degree criminal sexual conduct. And going forward, guys, I will just be saying CSC. They also agreed to dismiss a count of second degree CSC. Again, that's for the victim being under 13 and the defendant being 17 years of age or older. And they agreed to dismiss 2 counts of second offense notice. They also agreed to withdraw, and this was a sticking point for me in my first video where I talked about the fact that Jarvis was going to be charged as a habitual offender. They agreed to withdraw the notice to enhance his sentence as a habitual offender, and that carried a mandatory 25-year sentence. So they agreed to withdraw that. The terms and conditions of this plea, of this count, is as to count 3, he will receive anywhere from 10 years to 15 years. That means the minimum he could do is 10 years. The maximum he could do is 15 years. In the Michigan Department of Corrections, that's MDOC, he would have to register as a sex offender on Tier 3. Tier 3 is the highest level that you can do on the sex offender registration list. It means lifetime registration. Lifetime, yes, registration, I'm sorry. Sex offender treatment and no contact. And again, I'm not going to say victims' names, but I will tell you initials. No contact with JB or the family of JB and any restitution that's applicable. Case ending in 3201. He agreed to plead guilty to CSC in the second degree, person under 13, the defendant over the age of 17. They agreed to drop the CSC conduct, and they agreed to drop the CSC conduct for a second offense notice. They also agreed to withdraw the enhancement of the habitual offender. As to count 2, he's going to agree to the 10 years, but no more than 15 years in MDOC, lifetime sexual offender registration on the Tier 3, and he must agree to sex offender treatment. Also, no contact with the victim, PB, or the family. But I just want to make it clear, in this case, the last name being a B is not Butts. Case ending in 4101. He agreed to plead guilty to criminal sexual conduct, second degree, person under 13, defendant over 17 years of age. Again, the statute, the maximum penalty would be 15 years, lifetime electric monitoring. The people agreed to dismiss 2 counts of CSC in the second degree, 3 counts of CSC, second offense notice, and with all the rest of them, they agreed to withdraw the notice to enhance his sentence with habitual offender. As to count 2, 10 years to 15 years to be served in MDOC, lifetime registration on the sex offender list, lifetime electronic monitoring, sex offender treatment, and no contact with AD or the family. If you're counting, yes, so far that's 3 victims under the age of 13. And in case ending in 3601, he agreed to plead to 1 count, criminal sexual conduct, second degree, person under the age of 13, defendant over the age of 17. Again, 15 years in lifetime electronic monitoring is the maximum penalty he could receive. The people agreed to dismiss 2 counts of CSC and 1 count of second offense notice. They again also agreed to withdraw notice to enhance the sentence in the as a habitual offender. As to what he could receive, count 1, 10 years to 15 years, MDOC, lifetime registering on the sex offender list, lifetime electronic monitoring, sex offender treatment, and no contact with MJ or the family. Case ending in 7801, he agreed to plead guilty to count 1, CSC in the third degree. So in this case, it's a person of age 13 through 15. The maximum penalty he could have received is 15 and, listen, mandatory AIDS and STD testing. The people agreed to dismiss count 2, CSC, and second offense notice. Again, with all the others, they agreed to withdraw the notice to enhance the habitual offender, which carries a mandatory 25-year sentence. So, under this, the terms and conditions are 10 years to 15 years sentencing in the MDOC, lifetime registration on the sex offender registration list, sex offender treatment, and no contact with JW or the family. And finally, in case ending in 1801, he agreed to plead guilty in one count of homicide, M, in the second degree. The maximum penalty he could have received would have been life. The people agreed to dismiss CSC, abusive activity, CSC, first degree contact, person under the age of 13, defendant over the age of 17, and CSC, second offense notice. As to count 1, he will receive anywhere from 35 years to 60 years. Again, and this is another misinformation I think I need to explain. This is a minimum, maximum penalty sentencing guideline. So therefore, he must do at least 35 years before he can be eligible for parole. Does not mean he will get parole after 35 years. It just means he's eligible for parole. And if he's not granted parole, after doing 60 years, regardless, they must release him. So after doing 35 years, he's eligible for parole. Every 3, 5, 7, 10, however they do it in Michigan, he may go up for parole. And if he's not released after doing a completion of 60 years, they have to release him regardless. No contact with, and again, I don't mind saying these names because it's been out there for everyone to hear. No contact with Annette Harris or the family of Naziah Harris. And again, he agrees to provide a truthful statement regarding the body of Naziah Harris. This time is to run concurrent with all the cases I previously listed, meaning Jarvis cannot do more than 60 years. This is not a consecutive sentence, it's concurrent. This time will run simultaneously. So here is where a bit of the unpopular opinion comes in. I know, as we see, that Jarvis has at least 6 victims, maybe more. In this instance, one of them is unalived. I've always believed that the prosecution had enough evidence to charge Jarvis with M. Was it M in the first degree? Maybe. I do agree that they dropped the charges, a reduction of charges from M in the first degree to M in the second degree. My position is and has been that he agreed to M in the second degree, and that he would not agree if he did not believe that there was enough evidence against him to find him guilty. I don't believe anyone would take a guilty plea if they are not guilty for an unaliving. That's the first thing. The second thing is because there are 6 victims and he's accused of unaliving one, there are people who believe that Jarvis should have received more time. As we know, there is no D penalty in Michigan. That being said, we have a different determination of what life means, life with parole, life without the possibility of parole. And let's just discuss that for a second. So life can mean life, meaning your natural life, you never get out. Life with the possibility of parole, meaning after you do somewhere between 15, 20, 25 years, you can go up for parole. It also means in some jurisdictions, life only means 20 or 25 years. Here's why I say I believe justice was served in the case of Naziah. Jarvis has to do at least 35 years. I've seen people get less time for the unaliving of individuals. I've seen them get 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Jarvis has to do at least 35 years for the unaliving of Naziah. I do believe it's justified. Also, with the cases running concurrent, he has to do at least 35. I've seen that happen in so many cases where the cases run concurrent. He just wasn't going to get more time than that. So my position stands that someone who's going to do 35 years at least for the unaliving of a young girl and touching of other girls and won't get out until he's about 78 years old and maybe even longer, I think it's justified. I do believe it's justice when I see people get out with 10 and 15 years for the unaliving. So that being said, I know that there are people who believe others are involved, but I'm just talking about Jarvis, the sentence for Jarvis. In this particular instance, I believe that is justified, and justice for Naziah is absolutely served, as well as for the other girls in the amount of time he will have to do. So this brings me to my next unpopular opinion, because I'm not convinced that Shannon unalived Naziah. And here's my take on this. I find it hard to believe that those who think Shannon was jealous enough to snap because of Jarvis and one day go off and do just horrible, horrendous things to her, like take her life, cannot believe that Jarvis, who is a habitual offender and had already did 10 years in jail, would not also snap and feared exposure and feared going back to jail for a very long time. And the prosecutors proved that he was looking up ways to get rid of this baby, would be the one who would snap, would be the one to have more to lose. Shannon knew she was a part of, if nothing else, a harem of Jarvis women. She knew she wasn't the only one. And maybe she didn't like the fact that she thought she was competing with her own niece. But I certainly don't believe it was to the point that she thought she should unalive her. Jarvis had way more to lose. So for people who think that Shannon snapped and took her own life because she was jealous of Naziah, Jarvis had a gamut of other women. But you are the same people who don't believe that he would snap because he feared exposure. And although I agree that we did not hear all the evidence that we expected to come out in trial, you still can't ignore what we know came out in the preliminary hearing. More evidence supported the fact that Jarvis unalived Naziah. I know a lot of people are going on emotion, but you just can't dismiss what we know. And what we know is Jarvis was the last person to be seen with Naziah. Right up until 8:45 is what King gives us was when he left. You can't ignore that. You can't ignore all the evidence, the text messages, the tablet, all the evidence that the prosecutor compiled saying Jarvis' phone is pinging here, there, from the hotel to the river. You can't ignore that. He now says, he confessed, guys. He confessed, and that he dumped the body. And for those who believe he confessed because he's protecting Shannon because she has their kids, I don't know how many kids he has in total, but I can tell you he doesn't give a shit about the kids or anybody else but himself. And if you just go into the characteristics of a pedophile, of a narcissist, they care about the pleasure of themselves. It has nothing to do with anyone else. It has nothing to do with wanting to protect Shannon so she can stay out here and care for them kids. He even abused one of his own children. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. And it just reminds me again of the case of Shanquella when we have overwhelming evidence that points to a person that did the crime. We have a video of Dejanay attacking Shanquella, but we have people who want to blame the doctor, who want to blame the villa owners, who want to blame the paramedics, who even suggested that Nazir, and you don't have to like them, I don't care, I don't like any of them either, that want to suggest that Nazir came and SA'd her in front of 5, 6 other people, including the doctor, while playing Summer Walker music. It's kind of almost ridiculous. And that's what I think we have going on here. Overwhelmingly, the evidence supports and suggests that Jarvis did it. And now we have a confession. He pled guilty to it. But there are still people saying, nah, nope, he ain't do it. He ain't do it. I believe it's Shannon. And I say, well, show me. Because I'm always willing to consider the evidence. So show us the evidence where you can prove Shannon was at the hotel that night, or Shannon was in the car and her phone was pinging at all these different locations, or her phone even pinged at the River Rouge that night. However, I am in no way letting Shannon or Annette off the hook. But honestly, I think it's more Annette than Shannon because Annette was the guardian. She was the caregiver. Although I think, in one thing I'm going to mention, Shannon does bear a little bit more responsibility. But Shannon and Annette are absolutely guilty. They do bear some culpability. They should be charged criminally. But I'll tell you what it should be. They should be charged with neglect, child endangerment, reckless endangerment, child abuse, abandonment, failure to report suspected abuse. They should not get off. But I don't believe it's with the unaliving of her. I admit it. I believe Shannon and Annette lied in court. But I don't believe it was to protect Jarvis. I believe it was to protect themselves, their own failings. They knew that they were guilty of these things. And them lying was to protect themselves. Inadvertently, it may have helped Jarvis, or what they believe was helping Jarvis, but they were trying to protect themselves. Neglect. They failed to notice their child Naziah's environment, the changes in her surroundings. Was she pregnant? They failed to provide care, medical care. They failed to provide for her basic needs. Why is this child asking Jarvis for pads? Child endangerment, reckless endangerment. This is where Shannon comes in. Why would you have her or any of your children around a predator? They did not protect her. Shannon says she knew, or she found out, that Jarvis and Naziah had inappropriate messages between them. And you didn't report him? Child abuse. And I can only speculate about the child abuse, but I seem to remember a video where they were praying all before school. And then right after that, or before that, they was getting cursed out. And something about locks being on the refrigerator. Abandonment. This child went missing and you didn't even report her until the next day. And it wasn't even to the police. It was to the school resource officer. Failed to report the suspected abuse. Y'all knew or had a suspicion that Jarvis was doing something inappropriate. So again, I do believe that Shannon and Annette are culpable. I do believe that criminal charges should be placed against them. But again, I don't have anybody saying that she was in the car that night, that they saw her at that garage, or that her phone pinged at that river. I have to be absolutely honest. I did not believe Jarvis was going to accept the plea deal. And here's why. Another unpopular opinion. Jarvis has a lot of support out here. I absolutely believe that he's in there watching. They have access to tablets. He's on social media. For some reason, he has a lot of support from social media. I was pretty much outraged. Plenty of times I had to stop watching. I had to not get involved. I couldn't believe how much support I thought he had. How many people were saying, no, he didn't do it. Who were willing to place the blame at other people's doorsteps. Shannon, Annette, the sister, the the fake preachers, Frank, all these other people who I'm not saying are without fault. I just don't believe they unalive Naziah. There are many layers to this onion, and I said that, and you can just keep peeling back the layers. But when it came to Jarvis, I kept saying, hold him responsible for what he did. And I was one who said, oh, he's not going to accept this plea deal because he sees all the support he have out here. And he know he can sway at least one juror. If the juror pool is representative of what's going on out here on social media, oh, he know he can get one. And although I kept explaining how, plea deals work and the law, I was one of those persons that was shocked. But I still believe that the prosecution had something, because I also was one of those persons that said, no, if they charging him with M, well, they got something on him. I never believed their case was weak. I kept saying they have something on him. And guess what? He knows it too. He also knows that they have strong evidence against him because he took the plea deal and he pled guilty to second-degree M. If that doesn't convince you, those of you who don't believe, I don't know what will. I agree with the family members who want everyone held responsible that was involved, that failed her. I absolutely agree. I absolutely think Shannon and Annette should face charges, and also that they should not have custody of any kids. Also, I saw a video where there appeared to be a search for Naziah's body. I don't know the date of that video, but as I stated, this plea deal was put together on the 9th. So it makes me believe that Jarvis gave them information prior to the 9th, and obviously it was signed on the 12th. So prior to the 12th, I have to believe that this has been an ongoing investigation where they've always been searching for her body, and that with this additional information that they started searching for her body prior to the 9th or maybe even the 12th. I don't have exact dates, but I don't believe that they just started searching for her body again. I also have to agree with most of you who do not believe, obviously, that they're going to find a body intact. I don't know the details that Jarvis gave them surrounding what he absolutely did with the body or did to the body or how he dumped it. Again, I think they have way more details than what they're really revealing to us. And that's their right. This is still an ongoing investigation. They're not going to jeopardize it by releasing more information to us and have everybody compromising what they believe is the crime scene. And finally, my last unpopular opinion involves whether or not Jarvis loved Naziah. And I have to tell you, absolutely not. He was a pedo. And just to give you some characteristics of a pedo that everybody have already been discussing, so most of the things I'm about to say will not come as a shock. Pedos often date or marry women with children. They single out children who are in trouble and in need of attention or affection. They find different ways and places to be alone with children. They are often victims, but not always, of some form of childhood SA. A pedo will not stop on his own. He will abuse until he's caught. And these are not all the characteristics and behaviors of a pedo, but these certainly apply to Jarvis. He's also a narcissist. And going along this pedo behavior and him being a narcissist go hand in hand with him inflicting abuse upon Naziah. It comes down to power and self-gratification. There is no love there. It's only about him and his pleasure and what he wants. Now, I do agree that Naziah probably thought she loved Jarvis, sadly. And he will do and say things to try to get her to believe that. But that's part of the manipulation. That's part of the grooming. That's the part where he plays with her mind. But he sadly didn't even just do it with her. He did it with all the women he was involved with. Each of those women fulfilled a different role for Jarvis, where he abused, where there was a power play, where he manipulated, where he groomed even some of them, where again, he got close with them, with some of them, just to have access to their children. So again, each woman that Jarvis was involved with played a specific role, but love, nah, he didn't love any of them. And I think there are women out there who were S8 as a child who would absolutely cringe at the idea if someone told them your abuser loved you. Naziah may have been more attractive to him because she was younger. She was, just entering puberty, because she was more moldable, because she was more groomable, because she didn't have as much of a mouth maybe as the grown women did. But again, that's not love. That's abuse. That's power. That's him getting his way with a young girl. So I said it before and I'll say it again. Regardless of what other charges may come for anyone else, I'm grateful that Jarvis is taken off the streets, that he doesn't have access to anyone else to do this to one more person, to hurt, manipulate, groom any other girls. He's gone and he's going to be gone for a long time. And as I keep stating, he may even expire in prison. This has been another episode of Nikki Lynn Investigates. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and click here for more episodes like this.